Good morning. Welcome to your morning program on Echo Television, the Dailies, where we keep you up to date with what's happening on the paper. Today, being the 31st of May, the last day in the month of May. So just in case you feel you haven't achieved anything for the past 5 months, just to let you know that it's another day tomorrow to start all over again. I am Sele Shidasho, and I will be doing the program with Rachel. Good morning.
Morning, Sele.
All right. We shall be moving into the paper straight, and I will be starting with the Voice of Liberty. Federal government secure $500 million World Bank loan to boost Disco's detail found in the paper. Dangote Group to establish biggest rice mill in Niger, coming from Umar Bago, that's the governor of Niger State. And on the first anniversary, Ghana now richer than Nigeria, coming from Duane. Nigeria is in worse situation apart from civil war. Yes, this is coming from Tinubu. President Bola Tinubu says the country will prevail against the adversaries, undermine its peace and security, saying Nigerians are living in the worst situation apart from the civil war. Yes, more detail of that can be found in the paper. Insecurity will be difficult to address without eradicating poverty, coming from RADA. FCCPC, that's talking about the Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Commission, revealed those behind incessant increase in commodity price, and I think it's high time they have their numbers. So just in case you're going through that, you can make a call to them so they can monitor it. It's their responsibility to monitor the prices of commodity. And coming from River State, court declares 25 pro-Wike lawmakers seat vacant. Carmen Kano as district head pledged loyalty to Sanusi amid legal tussle. More detail can be found in the paper, and that's all on the Voice of Liberty.
On the Punch newspaper, Tinubu mulls new executive orders on tax and fiscal reform. An Emirate tussle, Kano governor meets Ribadu, Sanusi makes first appointment. Trump guilty in hush money trial, faces sentencing in July. You can find details on page 16. AFCC invites Kwankwaso over alleged 2.5 billion naira Kano pension fraud. The big story: student loan, 336 state institutions listed as 60,000 register. State students to be on board in 3 weeks. Applications reviewed from 90% of federal schools. Details can be found on page 2. On local government funds, federal government states begin legal fireworks June 13. Lasema blames occupants as 4-story building collapses in Lagos. IPOP sit at home, governors react as 2 soldiers killed, businesses grounded. You can find details on page 10. We have a picture story where we can see Kwara State Governor and Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and then we can see Oyo State Governor, and then we can see Acting National Chairman PDP, and we can see the wife of the former governor of Oyo State during the inauguration of the 76.67 kilometer Adebayo Alo-Okole Memorial Expressway constructed by Oyo State government. This happened yesterday, and that's all the news on the Punch newspaper. Now to the Nation newspaper, the big story: council autonomy battles rages at Supreme Court. Details can be found on page 2. Tinubu Lute Marking Day opens 776.67 kilometer Alo-Akala Road. Details can be found on page 6. 30,000 successful applications in for student loan. 9.5 million visit portal in 1 week. Security has improved under Tinubu, says ex-UK envoy. Court to sentence Donald Trump for felony July 11. Details can be found on page 4, and that's all the news on the Nation newspaper.
On Blueprint newspaper, federal government commissions 5.2 million cubic feet CNG plant in Lagos. More detail found on page 21. Still on the paper, we have despite threat, Nigeria will be united and prosperous, coming from Akande. And on business, investment tribunal nets 1 trillion naira from over 300 cases. And on Paris Olympics, Super Falcon to come in Spain. More detail found in the paper. Talk to governors to meet people's needs, Tinubu tells the ACF. Supreme Court gives governors 7 days to file defense on the local government autonomy. Fixed hearing for June 13. More detail can be found regarding that in the paper. Emirate Tussle, Kano governor meet NCA Sanusi makes first appointment. Don't Dare Us Defense Headquarters warns as 2 soldiers killed in Abia ambush. We have the Southeast compliance with sit-at-home banks, market and schools were actually shut in regards to them celebrating the Biafra Day yesterday. More detail of this can be found on the front page of the paper as well as in the paper. The federal government secured $500 million loan to boost electricity distribution. Don't smuggle illegal items into Saudi Arabia, Nikon wants pilgrims. Investment tribunal nets 1 trillion naira from over 300 cases. More detail in the paper. Downside of the paper, we have a story that says fears over state police no longer tenable, coming from Governor Rada. More detail can be found on page 9. We have a picture story here where we can see talking about the INEC, Professor Mamu, and then actually during some of the issuing of the cards concerning the Edo State election. That was yesterday, and that's all on the Blueprint newspaper.
On Nigerian News Direct, excluding FCT from TSA propel development. Statement from Wiki. Transcorp Group posts 57% revenue growth. Details can be found on page 29. The big story on the paper, electricity distribution. Federal government secures $500 million World Bank loan to strengthen discussed liquidity to boost metering penetration across the country. Details can be found on page 3. We have a picture showing celebrating Resilience Year of Progress. This is 1 year in office celebration from the Federal Ministry of Works to President Tinubu. We are opening up different towns and villages for economic prosperity by ensuring accessibility via motorable road networks. And we have pictures of newly constructed roads. And that's all the news on Nigerian News Direct.
On the Vanguard newspaper, Presidential Tax Committee recommend 800 naira to $1 custom duty rate. You can read more detail of that on page 19. On the local government autonomy, Supreme Court gives governors 7 days to respond to the federal government suit. U.S. court finds Donald Trump guilty on all counts in historical criminal trial to be sentenced July 11. You can find more detail of the international story on page 5. Coming from River State, court stop Amawale 24 orders from parading as speaker and lawmakers. The big story on minimum wage, labor may begin nationwide strike Monday if we have a writer following that to say today's meeting to decide next line of action, coming from Labour. Governors gang up stalling minimum wage negotiation, coming from sources, as tripartite committee reconvenes after Labour Tuesday walkout. Federal government pleads Labour understanding. More detail concerning the minimum wage can be found on page 5. Federal government inaugurates Inter-Ministerial Committee on Review of Intellectual Property and Policy. GTI shows Tinubu Ribado scaling up security, 6 the ex-British diplomat. More detail in the paper. And the issue of the Biafra Day, 3 soldiers killed as sit-at-home turns bloody in the southeast. And Rachel, you remember when we were expressing our concern regarding this, when they said that there will be sit-at-home. So I'm just worried what happened to the mathematics WAEC of yesterday in that part of the country. I was saying students didn't get to write the exams, and if they did write it, I believe that, I mean, there's no need for it anymore. They have to wait for NACO to make it up. That is if it doesn't clash with another seat at home. But we've expressed our concern the fact that if you are trying to get the attention of the government regarding something that you need, there is a better way. We remember what happened at the Okwama community when we lost some of our soldiers. Eventually civilians had to pay for it because there was a reprisal, and then they had to run away, living in the bushes. And here we're seeing that about 3 soldiers, according to the Vanguard. Other papers are having it at 2 soldiers. So regardless,
we had some security operatives that had to die as a result of this. So we just hope that, you know what, and that was why I called the attention of the Southeast governors. What are they doing regarding this? We're hoping to hear a statement coming from Abia State regarding what truly happened, and we hope that they'll be able to address this issue, because we already have a lot of security issues that are on the ground. Adding another one to this is kind of a way distracting the government attention, and then we have other people suffering. So let's look forward to seeing the steps that the government will take regarding what needs to be done. As it is presently, we're seeing that a lot of things were grounded yesterday, businesses, everything was grounded there. So we hope that things will actually normalize soon, because it's a matter of time before the dust will settle regarding the killing of the soldiers there.
So that the big question there is the question you asked: what are the Southeast governors really doing about it? We've had in the past where they've sat down and met and concerning the sit-at-home situation. However, we've not seen anything drastically done concerning the sit-at-home and the future of the Southeast. And look at the exams we're talking about, and it means that even if in some part some students were able to write, there will definitely be students that were affected due to this this chaos that took place that led to the loss of military personnel's life and all of that. So it means for that area, even if in some it was more peaceful and perhaps students were allowed to go and write their exams, in this area I believe that wasn't the narrative for the students in this place, because if it turned out to be bloody, then it means activities were disrupted for that specific area and all of that. But just as you asked, Sele, what are the Southeast governors doing about it? It's one thing to sit down and meet. It's another thing for us to see action, for us to see results as a result of the decisions you've taken. We might not expect you to come out and say this is what we will be doing moving forward, because this is sensitive. I want to believe that these kinds of meetings will be closed door when you plan on countering certain activities that are terrorist in nature. You have to be sensitive with what information you give out. However, what are the things that you are going to do that we are not seeing yet? Because it's very important. I keep saying that certain things, when it comes to insecurity, it ripples. It's like it spreads around before you know it. There was once a time certain things were only known or seen or heard of at in the north, but now we've seen these things moving down and spreading across Nigeria. We're talking about herdsmen and all of that, and it's just a matter of time. We know what these people's agenda are. So it's not just something that will start and stop at a particular region. It's going to spread. So what are you doing? Because obviously the sit-at-home is still prevailing over whatever you are doing. That therefore it means that you need to re-strategize and think, what are we going to do about it? It is really sad. It's insecurity, and whatever form it takes, if any life will be lost at the end of the day, then it's a dangerous thing. And I just hope that the necessary thing will be done with immediate effect. Just as you said, even if they get the chance to make up in NACO, how sure are we on the day of mathematics again it won't be a sit at home or something, and there won't be any kind of chaos and all of that? So something needs to be done about
Honestly,
it.
it really needs. Well, still on the Vanguard newspaper, we have calm as district heads pledge loyalty to Sanusi amid the legal tussle. Governor Yusuf meets Rubado amidst the tussle, more detailed in the paper. We have on sport talking about the World Cup qualifiers, where Blue for Eagles as Lavistu tells Stella opts out, more detail found in the paper. We have a picture story talking about the inauguration of the Inter-Ministerial Committee, which we're actually reviewing some of the intellectual property policy, where we can see Senator Ben Buri-Bruce and then other people during the inauguration in Abuja yesterday. And that's all of Vanguard newspaper.
On this day newspaper, NNPCL ExxonMobil reached settlement agreement on $1.28 billion oil asset divestment deal nears completion. National Oil Company gets additional 10% interest as parties await regulatory approval. Details can be found on page 6. 25 Rivers lawmakers suffer setback as court declares their seat vacant. Details can be found on page 18. Presidential Tax Reforms Committee streamlines taxes into 8 categories. At meeting with northern leaders, Tinubu says growing out-of-school children unacceptable. The writer says praises Ribadu on improving security, seeks effective local government. Says he won't hesitate to sack non-performing ministers. You can find details on page 8, and I'm truly looking forward to, after so many assessments, that the president will really say you are a non-performing minister, therefore you should resign, or here is a sack letter. We get to that point in Nigeria, I will believe that growth is happening. Not 4 years later, a minister will come and say, well, I was not put in the right ministry. We saw that with Kehamo when he was in education. And you stayed for all those periods. You were not performing well, and you couldn't speak up. You stayed, you enjoyed all the benefit, and the ministry suffered in your hands. So I just hope that truly, I keep saying it, that you will know a true leader if that person is a man of his word. When he says, I will do a certain thing, I will do a certain thing. We talked about ministers that we are not hearing of them. We don't even, because we don't hear about them, we don't even know their ministry exists or what are they doing in the first place. So if we will wake up tomorrow to seeing President Tinubu calling a minister to book and saying, you know what, your ministry is suffering, you haven't achieved anything and all of that, and you give them like a warning and say, okay, you have to sit up or not. If we can witness this in the history of Nigerian governance, I think that we are growing. But until then, we'll just hope for the best when it comes to these things like this.
You know, last year at November during their retreat, the president made mention of the fact that quarterly he will be assessing them. And you remember I said that, I think last week or so, where I said I'm looking forward to seeing that by the end of the second quarter, and that's talking about by, I think, July or so, we should be having another assessment of this ministers. And just like you said, if you're not performing, I think it's high time you leave. Let another person that is capable. And when we see that, truly, we will believe that this government is working. And the issue of this out-of-school children, where the president is saying is unacceptable, honestly, it is unacceptable. We're seeing the number increasing drastically, and we can link that to the fact that some of the factors are the insurgents we are seeing, and another thing is the fact that when they are not in school, they get recruited, and then we have more people again working against education, because that was how this whole thing started, being against education. So I am hoping that, you know what, at the northeast, northwest, every part in the northern part of the country, let us see the governors coming together. I know they have a committee where they do meet, but beyond meeting, let us see work, action taking place. We'll not be happy to hear that, okay, another attack in Mango because some farmers had to suffer because certain people did away, or herders actually destroyed some of their crops. Or we'll not be happy to hear that students were actually taking exams and were unable to finish. Why? Because there was another thing. So I'm just pitying those people at the far north. Right now the exams is going on. Some of them cannot write this exam because there is no peace. Bandits have taken over some of these communities and all of that. So I am hoping to see beyond words. Nigerians believe that when you want a change, they should see it in your action, not just you saying that, you know what, things should change. But let us see it in the action. So I am hoping, if we are praising Rubado for saying that there's an improvement, that is not to tell him that he should sit back, but when you are being praised, you should do more, because more is expected of you. So let's keep our fingers crossed and see how our ministers will keep performing and doing better eventually.
True, Sally. And you know, when President Tinubu is calling out northern leaders and saying out-of-school children number is unacceptable, this is a problem in the north, and we have to address it. And I just can't help but wonder and think, are we having our northern leaders using uneducation as a weapon? Because Sally, you and I are educated, for example. There's no amount of brainwash that we would receive that will work on us. A certain amount, we are not gullible to certain kinds of things. But what I see is religion thriving modern education. And what usually is when we use religion to create fanatics, then we have fanatics that will do your dirty jobs for you in the name of religion because they are not educated. This is the challenge we have in the North. And you will be shocked. We've seen it on the paper where people get paid as little as 500 to go and commit a crime, 500 naira. We saw this on our newspaper, Sele, and you can't just help. This is nothing but a result of illiteracy. Because an educated person, even if he will be a criminal, will not be paid 500 naira to be a criminal. Because exactly, and all of that. I see it as a weapon. I see it as a tool being used by northern leaders because they have no reason whatsoever not to have grown education in their area. I keep saying it, the North have had its fair share of leadership at the federal government level. We have presidents from the North. We can't sit down and say the northern leaders have been marginalized. This is one region that cannot say so. If the Southeast are complaining about certain things, the North cannot complain about certain things like that because we've had our good enough fair share of power in the Nigerian government ever since its beginning and independence, if I must put it like that. And yet, we are seeing that we are still backward. The North is backward when it comes to education. And you can't just help but wonder, why is that so? Are you using it as a weapon? Are you using it as a tool to control your people? Or why are you not educating them? Because you have no reason whatsoever not to educate them. So I just hope that our northern leaders prove to Nigerians that, you know what, we are not using on education or lack of education as a weapon, but we will start doing something about it. And until we see you doing something about it, I think Nigerians will just have to ponder and wonder, why is it so?
And you know, we need to also really emphasize that when we talk about education, we're not just talking about schooling.
Not just
it's
schooling.
more than the four squares of the classroom. Is more than just that. It's you being enlightened to certain things, and I think that would really help us a lot.
Still on this day newspaper, the big story in historic first, Trump found guilty on all 24 counts in hush money trial. Ex-president, this was a rigged trial by a conflicted, corrupt judge. You can find details on page 6, and we have a picture story. Former U.S. President Trump convicted, and we heard that the sentencing will be on July 11, and that's all the news on this day newspaper.
Daily independent newspaper, Rivers crisis, court bars 25 pro-Wike lawmakers from conducting legislative business. On local government autonomy, Supreme Court orders 36 states to file defense within 7 days. We have Tinubu queries governor overbearing influence on local government admin. More detail found in the paper. The big story on the issue of minimum wage, Labour, federal government in make or break meeting today. NLC TUC vow to mobilize for strike if negotiation is deadlocked. Government asks Labour to be considerate, patriotic in their demand. More can be found in the paper. Federal government moves to caution effect of subsidy. Court commissions 5.2 MMSCFD CNG plants. NNPC plans to roll out 6 more CNG stations nationwide. On electricity, federal government secure $500 million World Bank loan to boost distribution. Why I'm confident that Nigeria shall prevail against insecurity by Tinubu. Seek political means to end Kanu's incrimination, or Hanize urges Tinubu. You can find more detail of that on page 6. And on the issue of the seat at home, Southeast governors and others condemn killing of soldiers in Abia. Partial compliance as resident differ other in Anambra, Ebonyi, and Enugu state. More detail found in the paper. Troops kill 640 terrorists, nab 1,051 in 1 month. More detail found on page 6. And we have a picture story where we can see the governor of Enugu State during an inauguration there. You can do well to grab the paper and read more detail of any of the story that is of interest to you.
On On the Daily Times newspaper, the big story, autonomy for local government. Supreme Court gives governors 7 days to file defense to federal government suit. Orders federal government to file reply within 2 days. Hearing of suit to begin June 13. Details can be found on page 2. Donald Trump found guilty in hush money case. Details can be found on page 2. Tinubu to governors prioritize needs of local communities. Rivers political crisis, court sacks 25 defected lawmakers. Unseated home, Southeast Governors Forum condemns attack on soldiers in Abia. Edo election will proceed unhindered despite setbacks, says INEC chairman. You can find details on page 22. Unbridled attacks on military personnel will affect troops' morale, defense headquarters warns citizens. You can find details on page 13, and that's all the news on the Daily Times newspaper.
On New Telegraph newspaper, Rivers crisis, court bars 25 pro-wiki lawmakers from legislative duties. And on tax, we have Reform Committee proposes 800 naira to $1 as import duty rate. More detail found on page 3. See that we have the stay-at-home gunmen kill 4 soldiers, bomb patrol vehicle. As IPOB ground business activities in the southeast, we will no longer tolerate attack on soldiers coming from the defense headquarters. Data found on page 2, page 28, and on page 31. Local government autonomy, Supreme Court gives governors 7 days to file a defense. 600,000, we have 60,000 students register for the NEL fund loan. And then on the international scene, Donald Trump found guilty on all counts in historic criminal trial. And we still have the congratulatory message for the president on the front page of the paper. You can do well to get that and read more detail of any of the story that is of interest to you. But before we move further, let's take a break at this moment so we can let you through the stories regarding what do you feel the outcome of the meeting between the Labour and the federal government will be regarding minimum wage, as well as we're seeing that the governors are being asked to defend or actually give their own reply concerning the suit that the government filed on all the 36 governors regarding local government autonomy in the state. So we would love to hear your own views. When we come back, we will continue with the paper analysis. Please stay tuned with us.
Democracy is the theory that common people know what they want and deserve to get it good and hard. Join me every Friday, 7 p.m. on National Talk for analysis as well as in-depth perspective on issues as they unfold in and around Nigeria, as well as an opportunity to add your voice.
Thank you for staying tuned. It's still the Dailies. We have been looking at a number of stories on the paper where we're saying that regarding the Biafra Day that happened yesterday, a number of military personnel lost their life, as well as activities were grounded there, where we're seeing the soldiers that were killed actually in Abia State, where we're seeing that other governors of Enugu, Ebonyi are actually condemning that act, and as well as defense headquarters are also giving their own view concerning that these can affect the morale of the soldiers. So it is is a warning to people to actually stay clear and do the right thing. As well as we are seeing that the governors of the 30 states have been given 7 days to reply to the suit that was actually filed against them. And then we have other number of stories on the paper that we will love you to actually get engaged in by dropping your own comment and your views regarding any of the story that is of interest to you. I still have Rachel with me in the studio. Thank you, Rachel.
You're welcome, Sarah.
All right, let's take a look at the next paper, which is the Daily Struggle newspaper. Federal government announces new cash transfer scheme for 75 million Nigerians on Tinubu's first anniversary. More detail found in the paper. Still on the president's first anniversary, APC chief Tell faults Tinubu's policy on security and economy. You can start reading what they said about that on the front page, and you can continue on page 3. And we have NEDCO awaits Saudi approval for establishing clinics in Makkah. University like Northeastern University Gombe will reduce need for foreign education, says Emir of Zauzau. Detail found on page 13. Police Affairs Minister affirms commitment to reforms. Police Affairs Minister affirms commitment to reform, and we have NNPP woman leader predicts tougher times ahead. So you can read what she means by that inside the paper, and that's all on Daily Struggle newspaper.
On Daily News Hub, local government autonomy, federal government, state governors begin legal fireworks at Supreme Court. Hearing fixed for June 13. The big story: Rivers crisis, fresh troubles for 25 pro-Wike lawmakers as court declares their seat vacant, restrains them from parading selves as assembly members. Bars Fubara State Attorney General Chief Judge from relating with sacked lawmakers. Kano Emirate tussle, Governor Yusuf Ribadu in closed-door meeting in Abuja as district heads pledge loyalty to Sanusi amid legal battle. Over 60,000 apply for student loan in 6 days. Nigeria's growth rate to increase to 4.4% in 2024, prediction from the African Development Bank. Tinubu faced spiritual threats but won. This is coming from Akande concerning the presidency. You can find details inside the paper. Father arrested for selling 6 biological children in Sokoto. Police arrest killers of 6 core members in 2011 Bauchi post-election crisis. Troops neutralized 624 terrorists, apprehended 1,051 in May, a report from the Defense Headquarters. Still on Daily News Hub, sit at home. Rampaging IPOP militants kill soldiers in Abia, ground economic activities across Southeast. The last story on the paper is on Olympics. Team Nigeria begins camping June 2nd. And that's all the news on Daily News Hub.
On the Metrics newspaper, federal government moves to caution effects of subsidy removal with commissioning of 5.2 MMSC FD CNG plant in Lagos. Also on 1-year anniversary, Tinubu's scorecard unveiled, where we have one of the writer following that story here says fuel subsidy removal, halved petrol importation, increased FAC allocation coming from the federal government. Said 76 FX backlog clearance tops the list of achievement. More detail found in the paper. That's I could take that against a $7 billion FX backlog clearance topped the list of achievement. Launching of the 100 billion naira CNG bus rollout program to mitigate the effect of subsidy removal. More detail of all that the president was able to achieve can be found on page 2. Relief impending as tax reform committee taxed the federal government to peg custom import duty rate at 800 naira to $1. Silence of the graveyard. Nigerian Army police failed to address killing of soldiers in Abia State. Over 60,000 federal university students have applied for loan, says the NEL fund. More detail found in the paper. Ahead of deadline, Labour, federal government, operational private sector to resume minimum wage negotiation today. Supreme Court issued 7 days ultimatum to states to file defense in the local government autonomy suit. Also, we have a picture story as well during project commissioning, which has been taking place throughout this week and will continue until next week in the FCT, where we can see the president and also the minister of the FCT as well during that. Also, we have a column concerning entertainment, or you can see after launch, Davido's new cryptocurrency token lost 93% of its value. So for those who are interested, you can read that on page 15, and that's all on Metrics newspaper.
On Nigerian Tribune, court declares 25 pro-Wike lawmakers seats vacant. Tax Reform Committee proposed 800 naira to $1 as custom duty rate. You can find details on page 6. Kano Emirship tussle, Ribadu Yusuf meet in Abuja. The big story: 4 soldiers feared killed as gunmen enforced sit-at-home in Abia. Southeast Governors Forum condemns attack on soldiers. Waski candidate disguised as water fetchers to beat enforcers. You can find details on page 224 and 27. Rather than thinking of their papers, they're thinking of how to disguise themselves to go and write. I mean, what a tough situation to write WAEC. States participation crucial for our federation to thrive. A statement from President Tinubu inaugurates 76.67 kilometer of Bomosho-Isheyin Road. Details can be found on page 2. Many fear trapped as 2-story building collapses in Lagos Island. Global Terrorism Index shows security improving under Tinubu, says ex-British diplomat. Details can be found on page 12. On local government autonomy, Supreme Court gives governors 7 days to file defense. The corporate governance framework I'm leaving behind in Odua can only yield a world-class conglomerate. This is a statement from Adewale Raji at Going GMD. Details can be found on page 22, and that's all the news on Nigerian Tribune.
On Friday, Leadership newspaper, legal fireworks begin over the local government autonomy. Supreme Court gives states 7 days to file defense. Fixed June 13 for hearing. Revamp 774 LGAs for effective service delivery, Tinubu tells governors. CSO express hope. You can find more detail on page 4. And where we have trending here, marketers alter product expiring dates. As well as on numbers, Lagos Airport spend 1 billion naira on electricity monthly. Both stories can be found on page 2. 60,000 apply for student loan in 1 week. You can find that on page 6 of the Friday Leadership, and that is all on Friday Leadership newspaper.
On Daily Sun newspaper, the big story: Supreme Court gives governors ultimatum over LG autonomy, offers them 7 days to defend suit, fixes June 13 for hearing. Details can be found on page 6. Excitement, high expectations at Adaora Umeoji. New Zenith Bank GMD assumes duty tomorrow. Biafra Day lockdown in Southeast. Students defy IPOB order disguised to ride Waski. Soldiers kill 624 terrorists, arrested 1,051, rescued 563 hostages in May. Report from the DMO, and then we have 1,099 terrorists surrendered to troops. Details can be found on page 4. Tinubu commissions Wuye flyover link bridge, vows to build inclusive nation. Rivers belongs to us all, defend it, Fubara judges new judge. Uzodinma Kalu, deputy house speaker, condemned killing of soldiers in Abia. Court bars pro-Wike lawmakers from sitting. Kenyatta ways Sultan to attend Goodluck Jonathan Foundation Democracy Party. You can find details on page 6. And then we have picture stories concerning one for the vice president for the Obomashaw Expressway, and then that of Governor Imba of Enugu State, his deputy, and then the secretary to the state government for and commissioner for works and infrastructure during commissioning of 71 urban roads constructed and reconstructed at Ida River, Enugu. This was yesterday, and that's all the news on Daily Sun newspaper.
On the Guardian newspaper, Biafra Day turned bloody, soldiers kill as IPOB enforces sit at home in the southeast. And here we have galvanizing a new Nigeria with an old anthem where we can see a cartoon showing that Nigeria we will do. This is how Nigerians are feeling, because with the poverty, the hardship, banditry, inflation, and there we are having the government saying, sing after me with the new anthem, Nigeria we hail thee, while Nigerians are saying Nigeria we will thee. So we hope that the government will listen to the wailing of Nigerians and address all of these things that have been listed here, such as the poverty, the hardship, inflation, banditry, and many other things that are actually happening in the country. Still on the Guardian newspaper, Oyedele seek tax forbearance for critical sector, 800 naira to $1 import duty FX raid. And on World No Tobacco Day, tighten nose on cigarette access to help youth addiction, expert urges the federal government. And I'm just looking forward to what are the measures that the federal government is doing towards cutting down the issue of cigarette smoking, where we're seeing, I mean, it's not as if it's an illegal thing. It's been sold, it's legal, people take it, and then it's quite unfortunate because, Rachel, you that don't even smoke, what you take in, you inhale more than the people who take it. So I hope that they can tighten the issue of this news so that we can actually eradicate it, even though we know that there is a better way for it. But I just don't know what the government can do about this. And we keep saying that let's not leave this whole thing to non-governmental, bodies. The NGOs are trying their best, but we need to see individuals, government coming in and see what can we do. It's unfortunate, Rachel, that even on the park you hear that smokers are liable to die young. The same people that are smoking it. So what really is the problem? So we look forward to seeing steps that the government will take towards this issue.
The question for me is that will the government really do something about it? It's different when there is an illegal thing out there. We can say that for other hard drugs and all of that. Of course, tobacco is not a hard drug, but we know that it's addictive, and that is what makes it dangerous. My question is, for the revenue part of it, will we have a government that's willing to take that risk and cut down? Or do we have business people or marketers? We know people that are solely into the selling of things. Can they and will they be able to say, you know what, we're cutting down our sales because we want more Nigerians to be healthy and all of that? It all boils down to all of that. But I keep saying, regardless of what people are making, there are certain steps. We saw that concerning NAFTA, concerning the sachet, alcohol and all of that. And we know the TUC was out fighting that it's going to cost millions of jobs, hundreds of millions of profit, even up to billions and all of that. And then it died down. We don't know what happened concerning whether NAFTA went ahead with it or it just became a cold case. Nobody knows what really happened. But the question is, for this dangerous substance that are legal, will we be able to do something about it, looking at how much we'll be losing at the end of the day when it comes to revenue generation and all of that? It's really a tough one. So we just have to wait and see what take the government will really will take about it in the end of the day.
Each time I see tobacco, I put it together with TB. Tuberculosis, tobacco. That is how I put this whole thing. So you want to avoid tuberculosis, you need to avoid tobacco as well. So I hope that, Nigerians will take that seriously. Still on the Guardian newspaper, we have 60,000 students register for student loan in 1 week. You can find more detail on page 7. And we have federal government, labor, OPS continue minimum wage talk today. We hope that whatever negotiation they will come up with today should be something that Nigerians will be happy, and they truly do know that there is a gift coming from their government on a special day like the 1-year anniversary they are celebrating. Sanusi makes first appointment as Yusuf Ribado party in Abuja. More detail found on page 3. And then we have the local government autonomy. Supreme Court gives 36 governors 7 days for defense in the federal government suit. More detail on page 3, and that is all on the Guardian newspaper.
On On Punch Sport Extra, the big story, Wilfred Ndidi is exclusive. To be honest, the championship is hard, it's difficult, having to play sometimes 3 games in 2 weeks, having to play weekends and weekdays, travel up and down the country. It's really difficult. My championship experience. You can find details on page 6. On 2026 World Cup qualifiers, Chukwueze major doubts for matches, Olawi Intela out. Bafana named final squad for Eagles clash. Obaseki rewards Edo Queens with 42.5 million naira because they won the NWFL. Chelsea ready to splash 130 million pounds on Osimhen. Southampton to offload Onocho. You can find details on page 7. Juan Rodrigo pay 170 million euros. I believe this is what Real Madrid is willing to accept if Rodrigo must go. You can find details on page 3. Arteta to get huge pay rise. Details can be found on page 4. We have Love in the Ring, where we can see Madonna peak with Nigerian boxer sparks romance rumors. Details can be found on page 2. Company demands aggressive Bayern as the new head coach of Bayern Munich. You can find details on page 3. French Open bans alcohol. You can find details on page 2. Joshua's next form may be decided Saturday. Medvedev reaches 3rd round in Paris. Details can be found on page 2, and that's all the news on Punch Sports Extra.
Well, that's how far we can go on the program this morning. Thank you, Rachel, for doing this with me. And also thank you to our viewers, thank you to our supporters, and every other person who made the program a success. Until we come next week, do have a lovely weekend ahead.